house in Baltimore mess, and my goodness, there's so much going on between the Ravens free agency, the Orioles coming north, the World Baseball Classic. Of course, we got the Wizards and the Caps in first place, and the Terps. It wasn't much on Friday night down there at the phone booth. I was down there. I know this guy was down there, and now we are all eyes on Xavier and Orlando and 6:50 on Thursday night. Bruce Posner covers all things Terps as a longtime ticket holder, fan, media member, a follower, and of all of the brackets they could have wound up in, Bruce, this whole 6 seed thing and playing Xavier, I know it's not an ideal matchup, but it's certainly not a bad matchup right now.
No, it's not bad at all, Nestor. And when you consider that Wisconsin wound up as an 8, Northwestern was an 8, and I'm not sure how Maryland became a 4, except the 8 road wins had to mean a ton. And I think that when all was said and done, the committee had to look at that and consider that was a major factor. Because as a number 6 seed, that means they're in the top 24 according to the consideration. And to wind up where they did and not have to face one of the 2 seeds in the second round, should they be fortunate to get past Xavier, Nestor, it's a recipe to get into the Sweet 16. It really is.
Well, you would think that the Florida State thing could be an interesting thing playing down there if they get through the first game, and that's a big if. But let's just go backwards here a little bit, okay? I mean, we just had the Big Ten tournament. You and I have been blathering on for a couple of months about how great it was going to be, where they were going to get seeded, whether they were going to get the double bye. We knew it was going to be in D.C. We knew that Maryland fans, if they were energized, could come out. I don't think I still haven't processed everything that happened on Friday, and I know you've got a lot to say about it because you've been to more Maryland games than I've been to, and a lot of these, this isn't the first time they played. They played that BB&T game down there forever. A lot of folks didn't want to go down there and really turn it into a home gym in the way that it could have been, and Friday night was really different, man. I mean, I was down there on the floor where you were, and Bruce, everywhere I looked, it was wall-to-wall, front to back, top to bottom, left to right, east to west, red. I mean, it was as incredible a home advantage as they could ever have in an NBA gym, in a gym that's not their own gym like Xfinity.
Nestor, you just about took the words out of my mouth. I'll say this. I've probably been to about 40 different tournaments over the course of my life. As far most of ACC tournaments, I've been to some SEC tournaments. I've been to Big Ten tournaments before Maryland was there. And I'm going to make a statement that I have never, ever seen as one-sided a crowd in a tournament setting that I've ever seen before. And that includes Greensboro and anywhere else where the Carolinas have taken over.
Well, the interesting thing about Greensboro, and you know this, if it's Duke and Carolina playing in the final on Sunday, they split down the middle with the fans. Half of them seem to get in, and it's a half and half then. And if it's Carolina taking on Georgia Tech, everybody in there that hates Carolina, all the Duke fans, root for Georgia Tech. So it's never like that. 18,000 fans for one team and one little half a section of 500 people in purple, holding that hope with Elaine Bennis over there from Northwestern wearing purple. It was an abs, and it just wasn't how many people were there. The fans wanted blood. And you know what somebody said? John Crispin said this to me. I saw him at halftime. He said, what the amazing part is, these people have been drinking. You know what I mean? Like, there was a pregame, there was some beer, was a later game. Everybody made a night of it, and got down there, whether they drove down, whether they trained down. And I don't think in our wildest dreams we could have expected the Terps fans to just sort of all show up at the same place at the same time the way they did. That certainly won't be happening during the tournament.
Nestor, you were there all day like I was, and you noticed a lot of Wisconsin fans, a lot of Michigan fans, IU fans.
A lot of Indiana
fans.
And
all of a sudden, around game time for the Maryland game, all of a sudden there was a pouring in of Maryland people. I couldn't even believe where they were coming from. I mean, it seems to me that they had seats, or because for that session I think they announced 16,000, but it wasn't the same people that were there the session before.
Well, if you
It
were
was
out there during the Michigan-Indiana game, and I know you were for periods of that, I walked out at the end, and I'm like, well, the place is three-quarters empty. We might get 8 or 10,000 Maryland fans in here sort of scattered around. And, these poor Indiana saps that just lost, they might come in and sit down because they got a nice seat and want to watch Maryland play. They're in D.C. What else are they going to do? Boy, it shocked me, and I'm with you. I've been to a lot of tournaments and NCAA tournaments. It never feels like a home game ever for anybody. This one felt different. And then, Bruce, we got to take it to the court, right? I mean, we can talk about the crowd. The fans did their part, and it was incredible to see so many familiar faces. I mean, I had a couple of cocktails with Billy Cole and Joe Enoch between games, and saw a lot of friends of mine there, a lot of Baltimore people. Then the game started. Boy, I mean, what a stinker, right, on the eve of this tournament. I mean, that's what we're going to be talking about here during this snowstorm is they didn't play well on Friday night.
No, it was really, really disappointing. Turgeon, I don't know, did you stay for the presser afterwards?
I did not. I got down the highway.
Yeah, he was so depressed that he could barely get the words out, that he was so disappointed. And it had to do with the crowd. Because, Nestor, you saw what that crowd was on Friday. Imagine what it would have been on Saturday. I mean, you can't even think about a Saturday afternoon instead of 9 o'clock, in D.C., And I think he was really disappointed. But I don't know what happened. 44-34, you're sitting there, and I'm already thinking about the next day. And before you could blink your eyes, the game was over. I mean, they couldn't score. They literally could not score. And Adrian Branch, I was just listening to him on TV, made an interesting comment. He thinks that Trimble doesn't shoot enough. He thinks that everything really revolves around him. And, he tries to force some passes. He said he's the best offensive player on the team.
He was trying hard Friday, and it looked, I was down on the court, right? I mean, it looked like too much. I mean, he really... And first responsibilities take care of the ball, right? And I know Turgeon preaches that, and instinctively he knows that. They didn't take care of the ball. I think the rebounding thing against a bigger team, and I know Xavier has some size, they're going to struggle with that on nights when they don't shoot the ball well, and they didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Different gym, bigger gym, NBA gym, I think there was some sight, some visions. There were some air balls that went up. Jackson threw an air ball. It was kind of crazy at one point early in the game. There's a little bit of that going on, but it felt like a too much effort from Melo to some degree. Like he didn't play, they say within themselves or any of those stupid cliches. He didn't play smart. He didn't play a clean game on Friday night.
Well, let's be fair. When Maryland went to Northwestern earlier in the year, Melo had him for lunch. It was like he had the best game he ever had. I think he scored 32. And, Doug Collins is a heck of a coach. And you saw it everywhere Melo went, he was shadowed.
He was.
He had two guys. And here's the other thing that I feel better about the tournament going into the big dance. Every coach in the Big Ten has made a point of a badge of courage to criticize the fouls on Melo. You saw it with Chris Collins. You saw it at College Park with Izzo. Every coach jumps up and down when the refs call fouls on Melo. I mean, while Melo's driving. He does not get the calls. I'm not blaming the refs. The Big Ten's a tougher game. And you'll notice his foul shots in non-conference games are much higher. He'll get the calls against Xavier, and he'll get the calls against Florida State if we get that far. And I think that's a big difference in this team, Nestor. It really is when Melo goes to the line a lot. It's not happening in the Big Ten. It really isn't.
Well, you got a guy that's going to shoot 80, 85, 90%, wherever it's going to be on any given night, getting him to the line. And that was a big part of the prescription for his success 2 years ago was you couldn't stop him, so you had to foul him, and, they found different ways to defense him. And, we talk so much about his NBA game and going to the next level and all of that stuff. Friday night was not a good look. And, clearly this is a big weekend for Melo Trimble. This is a big weekend for the Terps. Bruce Posner joining us here. He is Terp Talk. You can find him out on Twitter at Terp Talk, at terptalk.com, and, of course, hosting some radio down the dial, and he's headed down to Orlando this week. This is a nice little trip, I think, for Terps fans, for people like yourself that do trail the program and follow the program around and have gone everywhere they go for a long time. This is about as good as you could hope for from a seeding. Yes, it's going to be a tough game, but they're all tough games. It's the NCAA tournament, for crying out loud.
There's no easy ticket in the NCAA tournament.
And then to avoid the two, as you pointed out, and to see an old ACC foe that, quite frankly, I don't think is going to strike fear in the hearts of anybody at Florida State, right?
No, but they do present that one problem that Maryland's had, and that's the big guys. I mean, DeMonte Dodd, God love him, he's a nice kid and everything, but he just really got him and Bender. It was like they weren't there; they were just driving on him. And I talked to a few of the old Terps, and they were saying that they wish one time that DeMonte or Bender would just really, not deck somebody to hurt him, but just give a couple hard fouls to let them know that there's a price to pay to go underneath. And they're just not tough enough. That's what Turgeon said, not me. He said they weren't tough enough against Northwestern, and maybe Northwestern wanted it a little bit more because they were, they still had some doubts about getting into the tournament. I'm not sure why, but Northwestern was a better team that night. There's no doubt about it. And then the next night they looked horrible against Wisconsin. They didn't look good at all against Wisconsin. I mean, they lost by 28, and it wasn't that close.
It is interesting how some of these teams, and we talked so much last week about, we're going to sit here and cry the blues. We're going to bitch and moan if they didn't play well. We're going to praise the crowd and, the possibilities and how much fun it would have been. They didn't really pay the price when seedings came out on Sunday night, did they? I mean, getting their butts kicked at home in the way they did and not scoring and doing lots of things wrong on Friday night, it didn't cost them in the end seeding-wise, and I think for that you can be happy about it. But it also, you're going to jump on a plane and go down to Orlando and really hope to see something different from a motivational standpoint than what you saw on Friday night, I think.
Yeah, which team's going to show up? I will tell you, the committee did not reward teams that did great in the tournament. Well, like Carolina, I mean, how do they hold their number one seed? I mean, it doesn't make much sense losing to Duke in the championship. But here's Kansas as well. But here's the bottom line: they looked at the regular season. That's why they gave Purdue a four seed, and Maryland. There's no doubt, Nestor. 8 road wins had to be the deciding factor to move Maryland to a 6 seed. Because when I saw that Wisconsin was an 8, didn't you think Maryland might be a 10?
Well, I thought it was. Yeah, but I mean, they were 20-2. They did win a lot of games on the road. I think as maligned as the Big Ten is, well, I mean, it's not like it's a mid-major. There's only so many major conferences, and you could talk about the SEC or the ACC or, any of the other conferences. The Big Ten still, when brackets come out, there is a level of respect for going through the Big Ten, and I think Maryland got that level of respect, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt. History plays a role into it, and maybe where the games are on TV and their audiences and stuff like that. And I think Maryland got a tremendous break this particular year just by moving up 1 or 2 seeds. But you know what, Nestor? We talked about it. I talk about it a lot on my show that we played the whole season just about to get that double bye. And at the end of the day, it didn't mean a thing. In other words, maybe they'd have been better off not to get the double bye and get a win behind them and then go into the next game. I mean, the double bye, it just didn't mean that much. But
did you enjoy the tournament by and large? I mean, it was a nice venue, and I was actually down in D.C. all day Sunday. My wife's donor Niels came to town from Germany, and he and his pal wanted to go see D.C. I drove around D.C. all day Sunday. I'll be honest with you, Bruce. I mean, I saw Michigan State stuff. I saw Indiana stuff. I saw plenty of Michigan stuff. Of course, they were involved, but I saw fans down all along the mall wearing a variety Purdue stuff. I saw a lot of Purdue stuff, quite frankly, where the fans, we lost or whatever, but they still made a weekend out of it. It was a nice weekend in D.C., I thought, for everybody, for the Big Ten, for the teams, for the fans, for the Terps, other than the game itself. I thought it was a winning environment, I thought.
It was great, and that's why when I talked to you over the past few weeks, I insisted that you go because I knew you would really, really like it. And had Maryland done better, it would have been a lot more fun. But that's life.
Absolutely.
And they just didn't have it. It's just a game. And I tell you what, I knew when the game was over by Sunday night, I'd be pumped up again. All right, and because I left there, and you're lucky you left early because there was a major accident on New York Avenue. I got home at
It was a
2:15
fire.
yesterday.
It was a fire, and I was about 10 cars behind it. We detoured out, and we went through, another section of D.C. It was a horrific fire right on New York Avenue 10 minutes after the game ended. It was incredible. And, flames up in the sky, the whole deal. I mean,
Wow.
there were probably 6 hook and ladders, from every direction. I couldn't imagine if you did stay to the end and kind of dallied a little bit and got stuck in a garage. It was a bad scene down there Friday night for sure.
Oh, it was hard. Well, I stayed for more than a while. I went to the press conferences.
Sure.
And then we did our post-game show that I always do on video that's on turftalk.com. And then I left probably 40 minutes after the game, and I sat for an hour.
Wow.
And I wasn't in the best mood to be sitting.
Yeah, it was a 2 a.m. club. Bruce Posner joining us here. He's Terp Talk out on Twitter as well as TerpTalk.com. Last thing for you, Bruce. We talked about a lot of things. And, I love having you on. It's been great having you on all season. And, I'm assuming if we're going to get together again Friday or next week, it would mean the season got extended and we won't be talking about is Melo coming back or not. But for you, in judging this season from where it is right now, and you're a guy, you're invested, you're getting on a plane, you're going down to Orlando, not just to see Mickey Mouse. What is your what makes this? Do they have to still be playing next week? Do they have to win these 2 games, beat Xavier, beat Florida State, and then you say, all right, then you're on borrowed time, anything happens? Is there any way they lose this weekend and you can still feel good about the season?
I feel good about this season no matter what happens, Nestor.
Wow,
You got to
okay.
look at it like this. All right, and I know, look, I'm not an impartial guy. You know it. I know it. That's a fact. But when you look at the fact that they lost 4 starters from last year, and he started 3 freshmen that albeit were excellent, excellent recruits, but they're not number 1 McDonald's All-Americans, okay? And
we had that. We had that with Diamond Stone. We know what that looks like. It looks like 12 weeks rental, and by the time February rolls around, they got 1 foot in the NBA. These kids don't have that. For that, I'm grateful because not all freshmen are created equal, right?
Well, just think how great Kevin Herker's could be next year. And Justin Jackson is either hit the wall or he's just in a slump. I don't know what it is. But he's shown signs of being great. And Cowan is the super point guard. I think he's done a tremendous job. They were 24-8, Nestor, after losing 4 starters. How anybody could say that this hasn't been a good season for them. They're in the dance. We got the dream. We got a 6 seed. We certainly have 2 games that we could win. Arizona would be brutal if we got that far. But I'm thinking about the first half of the next game, But, no, I wouldn't be upset at all. I don't want to see us lose. But all this, whenever they lose a game, all this, the fans just, I walked out of that arena. I wish you would have been with me. I had people screaming at me. You know what I'm talking about. You know I'm not kidding you. What's wrong? How they do this? And I said, guys, come on.
It sounds like me at a Ravens game. When I walk out, it's my fault if they lose.
That's right. It's always your fault.
They got to yell at somebody. I guess Harbaugh and Flacco are unavailable in the radio shows here. Well, I'm glad you feel that way. It really... This has been a really fun year to be a Terps fan. And I think Friday night, even the disappointment and the long ride home and the fire on New York Avenue and all of that, for those moments between 9 and, until they got outscored 18-0, right, about 10:30, that hour and a half in there, Scott Van Pelt getting the standing ovation and, Julia Louis-Dreyfus getting booed out of the play. It was electrifying, and I think that as a fan, you want to have that feeling. I think that is part of the feeling you get being a Ravens fan or an Orioles fan, and you don't always get that with the Terps, right? There's some down period, there's some dark period. The Redskins are going through a dark period right now. It happens everywhere. But Friday night, had they been able to pull that off, people would have said, man, remember that night we packed that place down there? And instead, we'll move on and see Xavier this week and see how we do. I know they're capable of beating this team, right? So for that, I think that gets us all tuned in at 6:50 on Thursday. They can win this
no
game.
doubt. And one thing we always have to remember, and you know this, everywhere you go, everybody you know in Baltimore and into Washington, okay, everybody you know is a Maryland basketball fan. It's a cult. It really is. And the people love them, and everybody's an expert, and they really know their stuff. And it's not a coincidence that this team is the talk of the town, because there is no other major college basketball team in that area, and Maryland's it. That's taking nothing away from Towson or Loyola or whatever, but Maryland's the straw that turns basketball on in this city, and that's just the way it's been. And there's not, even Georgetown doesn't parallel the interest to Maryland. They draw flies out there.
Well, there'll be a lot more interest if they get through these 2 games this week, right? I mean, you'll see everybody jumping on the bandwagon next week if they go west, young man, as they say, right?
Hey, there's always room on the bandwagon. You know that.
Maryland, Maryland will win. Hey, Bruce, great having you on as always, man. I'm sorry we didn't bump into each other on Friday night, but there were a lot of people there. There was a good excuse, right? There were 18,000 of us there on Friday night.
There must have been 600 press there, too.
Well, from all over, the Midwest and every other place. Hey, great having you on. Rest up. Say hello to Mickey and Minnie. Get down there. Get yourself a little bit of sun, just in case things don't go right. But I'm hoping you have a nice long weekend down in Orlando, Bruce.
I agree. Thanks, Nestor. Great talking to you.
Always a pleasure. Terp Talk, the way to find him, and terptalk.com. He's out on Twitter. Bruce Posner, shooting videos, doing radio, doing video, doing blogs, and doing Terp Talk. Simple as that. Speaks for itself. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world that the internet flies. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Talk about the Terps going down to Orlando. If you're interested in going to London, we do have our trip available. You can get some email information from me, nasty at WNST.net, or you can go to the road trips tab at WNST.net. Green Bay, Nashville, Oakland, and Minnesota all coming next month once we get the rest of that NFL schedule. We're going through Ravens free agents. We're making fun of the Redskins all week. That'll never go out of style. And waiting for the Orioles to get here as we all shovel driveways and figure out what a blizzard in March is going to look like. It's going to be an interesting week around here. Caps, Wizards, rescheduling, blast in the heat. What else we got going on? Oh, World Baseball Classic, too. It's sticky around here. It's a mess. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.